it's funny. Sometimes I'll hop on a podcast with someone that, we've never talked really.
Right.
But I've listened to them on other podcasts.
And it's like you've talked to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, you swear a lot more than I do. And that's okay. Like people can talk however they want, but I'm like, I guess I'm going to have to put this out as an explicit episode.
Well, it's funny because, once in a while I have a conversation with the less savory population.
Yeah.
And I slip right into it.
Yeah.
I'm speaking their vernacular. It's like speaking their language,
Definitely.
Sometimes it comes out.
Oh, yeah. It happens. When I was, actually, how you and I met, I was a SWAT medic.
Right.
And we came over to your academy.
Yeah.
And you taught us arrest techniques.
Yeah.
That was really my first
exposure to it. That's super cool.
It was cool. That was probably some of the best years at the fire department.
Yeah.
Were those years.
Nice.
So, one, I wanted to start off with saying you have the best last name.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Where does it come from?
So it's kind of interesting, like, last names, we always think of them as coming from different things. And, Smith, he must be a blacksmith somewhere back in the medieval times or whatever. And like Payne is actually a really interesting name in that it goes back, you have very like Scottish roots, French roots. The origin of it actually goes back to the root word pagan.
Interesting.
Which is super interesting. Like my family history, they've gone all the way back to the Crusades, man. So it's pretty interesting that it goes all the way back to Hugh de Payne, which is the Templar Knight, one of the founding members of the Templar Knights. So
that's way cool.
It's pretty wicked, right? So
yeah,
that's where it comes from originally. But
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I've dabbled in the Masons. So I mean, we're pretty much brothers.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. When did your family move over here? Do you know? Do you know that history?
I don't know all of it. I know we were part of not the Ellis Island group. We're early settlers, so
okay.
I don't know where it all migrated from, but it definitely started from, obviously, like everyone else, from that East Coast to West Coast.
And if they're Knights Templar, I mean, warrior has always been in your family.
Oh man, there's some great stories and some really good family history there, but it's pretty interesting.
I want to hear some.
So there's a Hugh de Payne story where he talks about, because he would always take these duels, right? Anybody wanted to challenge him. He's this giant dude, and he'd stop from killing them, like, because you could legally kill them in these duels, but he didn't. It wasn't worth his time. Yeah. So instead, they had the big knighted gauntlet, giant metal glove, and he would just beat them unconscious with that instead. And he's like, I don't need a sword, I'll just beat you down, like that kind of thing. You're like, man, that's hardcore. Like, I feel like such a soft person in comparison to these things.
I put him in guard now.
Yeah, no, just pull guard.
That's really cool. Have you had other family members in military?
Like my grandfather was in the army and things like that. My dad, not in the military, but a really interesting, eclectic life. He was a bouncer for a lot of my childhood. He was a stuntman for a while. Oh, that's cool. Now he's worked the last several years in a gold mine in Alaska. That's where I'm originally from, is from Alaska. So.
Okay, gold mining, that's awesome.
That's awesome, right?
Yeah, and especially in Alaska.
Yeah.
So how long did you live in Alaska?
I lived there most of my life.
Okay.
So left on my mission.
Where'd you go?
I left and went to North Carolina. So the eastern half of North Carolina.
Was that kind of first time out of Alaska, or?
No, I'd been out a couple times. Like, I'd been down, we call it the lower 48.
The lower 48. Yeah, you guys have to pay extra shipping up there, right?
Oh my goodness, it is so expensive, because people don't think about it. Like, the things that, pretty much everything has to be shipped up there.
Oh yeah.
So it's incredibly expensive to get anything there.
Yeah.
It's like shipping it to a foreign country.
Mm-hmm. Did you grow up eating a lot of fish, meat? Did you guys hunt?
We had it was a lot of wild game. Man, I took it for granted so much. I'm like, oh no, moose again.
Yeah.
Dang it, Mom. But no.
We need to take a trip up there.
Right.
Because I'd love to fill a freezer with some.
That's what we would do. We would do that every summer. We'd go to Valdez. We'd go fishing. More fish than you could possibly eat.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's awesome.
I've spent about 10 times more this year hunting than I ever have in my life. And
at least you're honest about that, man. Because a lot of people I know that are big into hunting, they're like, oh, it's economical. I'm like, it's not.
It's not economical.
You could say it's fun. You could say you love it, but it's not economical. Come on.
There's a Jeff Foxworthy. You may have heard it. He's like, sweetie, I broke this all down for you. My camo cost this. My ammo cost this. My gas cost this. You know, by the time this is said and done, this is $100 a pound meat, and you're taking this for granted. Like, this is expensive, high dollar meat.
You better appreciate this.
That's awesome. When did you? So I mean, one, just tell me about yourself. I just want to learn who Isaac Payne is.
Oh, shoot, man. Where do you even start?
I know. Well, Alaska, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Alaska. So Alaska is a culture in and of itself. I grew up in a rural town called Delta Junction. It's about 100 miles south of Fairbanks, about 300 miles west of the coast, east of the coast. So it's like in the exact middle of the state, middle of nowhere. But yeah, real small little town. Everybody kind of knows everybody. But Alaska culturally is such a rough, tough group. And it's great in a lot of ways. They're very hardy people and also a little crazy.
Yeah.
But I love them to death. I love to go back and visit in the summer.
And is the summer similar to our months of summer?
Yeah, the summers there are beautiful.
Yeah.
Like they're really nice. And I was totally used to it growing up. I mean, they have the longer and longer days. Eventually the height of the summer where I'm from, it's light all day long. Like it's like a sunset that never ends, and it comes back up.
Weird.
And then wintertime is the opposite.
Yeah.
Our shortest day is like less than an hour
of sunlight.
Yeah.
So you're just pounding the vitamin
And it's
D.
usually, as a kid, it's usually in the middle of school, so you don't even get it.
Interesting.
It's super depressing.
Yeah. Well, there are higher suicide rates.
Oh, much higher, much
Yeah.
higher. And this is a really weird, sad mental health thing that I track as part of my job at the office. But like places like Idaho, Alaska, where they have that seasonal effectiveness disorder, like it's much higher rates.
Yeah.
It's just something to be cognizant of. But
Yeah, it's a sad deal, but it's good we're studying it.
yeah,
I mean,
paying attention to it.
Yeah. What do you do for it? Vitamin D and exercise? Do
Yeah,
jiu-jitsu?
I actually talked to one doctor, and he said if you live in one of those environments like Alaska, like Idaho in the winter, where it gets dark a lot, you need to supplement. Like if you live there for 8 months, he said if you've lived in that environment for 8 months of the year, you need to supplement.
Yeah.
It's the only way, because you need that sunlight, you need that vitamin D.
Yeah, for sure. So you grew up there, went on a mission to LDS mission.
I went on an LDS mission in North Carolina. It's total culture shock for me.
Yeah.
I thought everywhere was kind of like close-knit, like Alaska. It is not.
Yeah.
So
My brother-in-law went to North Carolina.
Did he?
Charlotte.
Oh, very cool. North Carolina is awesome. It's incredibly hot there.
Okay.
But it was a lot of fun. The people there are very, very cool. And they kind of have that. It's very much that Southern culture.
Yeah.
But a little bit different than what you typically think of in the South. I served a lot of my mission in the Chapel Hill, Durham, all that kind of area, kind of where Duke University and UNC are. That was like my area.
Yeah.
So we'd walk campuses a lot. So
That's cool. How's the food?
amazing.
I love going places just for the food. Go all over the world, and it's like with the food. That's just what I want to. That's what I want to do.
Oh yeah.
So after mission, went back up to Alaska.
I didn't actually. So most typically when you finish an LDS mission, you go straight home. I didn't. I stayed, worked a little bit for a couple months there, before I got into school here.
Yeah.
And then I just came here. So
Okay.
I came to Rexburg in 2004, and almost immediately started at the sheriff's office as a
Cool.
reserve.
Yeah.
So I started at the sheriff's office as a reserve, and started school. It was like one big expedition there.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
What did you go to school for?
So I got my degree in communication.
Oh, cool. So that fits right into your.
Yeah, originally my plan was I was going to get my BS in communication, and I was going to minor in political science, and I was going to go to law school.
Yeah.
But working at the sheriff's office very much cured me of ever wanting to become a lawyer.
For sure.
Nothing against them. I'm glad somebody wants to do it. It's not for me.
Oh, it'd be such a tough,
It's not for
such
me.
a tough deal, and tough on both sides, like the prosecution and the defense. Just so incredibly difficult.
Mad respect for them.
Yep.
But I know I don't want to do it.
Yeah. For
That's
sure.
what that taught me.
Yeah, I thought about that for a little while. Then I thought about like actual politics, and then like nope.
It's rough. Like there are people and that are kind of tuned into that, and they have that gift. Not me.
Me either. I just want to talk to people all day, and
yeah, I feel you.
yeah.
But yeah, that was how I ended up here. I was going to school, and this is how I met my wife. It's
Cool.
So
you met her at school?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So my roommate was dating her roommate. So networking.
Networking. That's what it's all about.
It was actually really funny because she absolutely hated me when she met me. She couldn't stand me. But our roommates were dating, so we spent a lot of time together. So I grew on her like a fungus.
Yes. That's good. Yeah, because then you got all the bad stuff out of the way.
Right. So like I knew her roommate initially, And I had all the dude, martial arts nerd for years, right?
Yeah.
So I had all these like martial arts weapons laying around, and she's like, "What is this?" And she picked up like a pair of nunchucks, and she's like, "How do you use these?" So I spent like days teaching her how to use the nunchucks.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, it's super cool." And she kept going home to her apartment where my wife lived, and she'd come home with these bruises and things on her. She's like, "Where are you getting these bruises? What's going on?" She's like, "Oh, no, this dude, he's teaching me how to use the nunchucks." She's like, "What?" So she's like, "Hang on, I'll call him. He'll come over." And like, I came over, I brought my nunchucks in their little like tiny apartment. I started whipping like dual nunchucks around. She's like, whoa. Like, you're a crazy person. And she like literally kicked me out of their apartment. She's like, "Don't come back."
Don't come back.
And now we're married.
Now you're married. That's awesome. What got you into martial arts? And how long, like what age were you and what got you into it?
Oh man. So like, I feel like I got to back way up. Cause
Yeah,
like, as a kid, you wouldn't imagine this, I know. But like as a kid, I was a soft, squishy little dude. Like,
Me too.
Very, very quiet, squishy little kid.
Yeah.
Got picked on a lot. Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you the amount of beatings that I got in school. Like, it was just a normal thing. So like bullying to me is like old hat, whatever.
Yeah.
And I started, my parents, my dad, and would get me into wrestling. I got into wrestling probably when I was about 10 years old. And that was, I consider that my first martial art.
Yeah,
like I really
for sure.
do. Because it very much instilled a lot of those things that you'd equate with martial arts. But I don't think people normally consider wrestling a martial art, but it very much is.
Yeah.
And then about high school, I made some friends. I ran into some friends that did an American style of karate. So I started doing that as well.
Yeah.
Later, I got into MMA. And so my first couple MMA fights were basically a hodgepodge of a few submissions thrown into my wrestling with a little bit of karate in there.
Yeah.
And back in the day, in the dark ages of MMA,
Yeah.
that could get you by.
Yeah.
That's a lot more than most people knew.
So was it MMA before UFC? How did that all work?
So MMA is just kind of a generic term.
Okay,
It's
just mixed martial arts. So you're just kind of fighting,
Right.
street
like
fights.
man, you go back, it's pretty cool. Like you can go back to the Luta Livre in Brazil.
Yeah.
And they've been doing MMA for a long time.
Yeah.
Like go to Japan, they've been doing MMA for a long time. We've just kind of labeled it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, mixing those arts is something that's been very cool and very cool to see it kind of evolve.
Yeah.
And then
so you were doing
1993
that
we see
before UFC.
Oh, I'm not that old.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The first UFC was in 1993.
Oh, okay.
So early 2000s, I had my first fight. So it's been around a minute. But yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
I fought a bunch of amateur MMA fights, so I loved that.
Yeah.
And then after doing MMA for a while, I took my first real jiu-jitsu class from this little 150-pound dude. Still my friend today. Hello, Garrett. And literally kicked the crap out of me.
Yeah.
He didn't have to, but I think he was. I like to think he was teaching me a very valuable lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. You know
you,
all
Garrett.
these martial arts, and now I'm gonna pull a card.
If I want to expose somebody, I have to talk about Garrett Hartley, who is the guy who taught me this lesson very early on. He owns a school in Alaska, cool guy. Him combined with my other first coach, Carl St. George. He also owns a school in Alaska. Great guys, and they taught me out the gate how much I did not know. And there's only two reactions to that. People walk into a jiu-jitsu class, they kind of get controlled, and especially for like a full-grown man,
Yeah.
someone who I kind of thought I could fight.
Yeah.
That's an ego hit hard. And there's only two responses. You either get hooked and you're like, well, I've got to learn this now. Or you walk away and you never come back.
Yeah.
That's the only two things that can happen.
For sure.
And definitely got hooked.
Oh,
I've been
yeah.
hooked ever since. That was about 12 years ago. So
Yeah. Yeah. How long have you owned? So you started with Payne Athletics.
yeah, which was a combination of all the things that I love to do.
Yeah.
And like to me, it was very much like my own little playground.
Mm-hmm.
I was not thinking of it as a viable business. I just wanted
Yeah.
to do the stuff I wanted to do.
Yep.
So I had weights in there. We did some Muay Thai because I've been doing Muay Thai for years.
Yeah.
Boxing, I've been doing boxing for a while. And I had all those components. And it was a lot of moving parts. And as a business, it was not effective.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. It's
fun.
It was super fun. But that was our first initial kind of foray. It was Payne Athletic Company, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we did that. We started that in 2015. And then about a year ago, a little over a year ago now, we kind of rebranded
Uh-huh.
and boiled it down to like I had to sit down and make it more efficient. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, what is the heart of what we do, and what's all the clutter? It's not like those things are bad. They're just not efficient from a business standpoint.
For sure.
So to better serve our clientele and to make a more efficient business, we removed everything but the jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
We made that the kind of the core. And we changed it to PAC Jui Juitsu. So
Yeah.
Payne Athletic Company shortened it down, PAC.
Okay,
PAC.
I was actually going to ask.
Oh, yeah.
Like, where'd PAC come from?
Yeah,
That
that's
makes
where
sense.
it came from. Yeah.
That's really cool. And things have been going good.
Oh, it's amazing.
Good.
So yeah.
That's awesome. What are some of the wrenches that have been thrown in along the way?
Oh man, as far as like the business goes, like
Yeah.
I had honestly, and you could probably empathize with this. I had no idea what I was doing.
For sure. Yeah.
Not a clue.
But you did it. That's
But I did
that's
it.
the key.
I jumped.
Yep.
Because I got here. I have to back up. Sorry, I'm all over the place.
No, you're great. That's why we're here.
My wife and I we finished school here back in like 2009, and we left.
Yeah.
So I joined the Air Force. We
Okay.
left. We were gone. We're like, peace out, Rexburg. We're out. And then I got out of the Air Force. We tried living near her folks in California. We tried living near my folks in Alaska, and none of it was quite right.
Yeah. Well, you can't live in California.
No, dude, I was like a fish out of water.
Yeah.
And we ended up right back here. Like, where do we want to raise a family? Like, oh, America's family community.
Yeah.
We're going to go to Rexburg. So we came back to here, and that's when. But none of the things at the time, none of the things I like to do were here. Oh, there's no Muay Thai, there's no boxing, there's no jiu-jitsu for sure.
Yeah.
So we had to do it ourselves. That's what you're left with. It's like either not do it or do it yourself. So the wrenches, I think, were not knowing a lot of, and I feel like if you're a half intelligent person, you can kind of figure these things out. You know, things like business plans and filing your taxes and all these kind of components that you just kind of have to learn along the way. And then the people aspect, that's the big question mark, right? Because like, oh, well, everything looks numerical on a spreadsheet.
For sure.
But there's the human factor that you can never account for.
Exactly.
So that's been fun. That's been fun to kind of figure out.
There's businesses that'll come in and spend $50,000 on a market analysis, and
not know anything.
anything. You can, but what you did is you went out and you built a community.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing too. There was a really great book that was referred to me by a friend, and I've loved it. Is the book Tribes?
Oh yeah, great.
Love it.
Yep.
And there's a
That's
lot
what
of
you're doing.
yeah, so that's what I'm doing.
And we're just tribal individuals, like
by
it's
nature.
in our nature.
It's in our DNA. And I think it translates well, and it's not anything dubious. It translates well to making people feel like they belong.
For sure.
I'm sure you get the same thing here.
Yep.
Like you build that kind of community.
Yeah, and it's so good. I mean, we early on we talk about seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you enter a tribe, and now you're accountable to somebody.
Yeah.
You got some physical exercise.
Watch out for each other. Take care of each other. Physical exercise, mental exercise.
Yeah. Hey, why didn't you show up today? Do you need anything?
People do that.
Yeah.
Like I haven't seen you in class in a couple days. Where you at?
Yeah. So good.
So good.
You guys just need to sell vitamin D, and you got the whole thing.
And then we got the whole package.
Now, so speaking of selling things, Anaconda.
Yes. So
Tell me about that.
This was an interesting partnership. So I've had several. It was weird, man. And maybe you got some social media insight into this, but like after I got sick, and we can talk about that too in a bit. But after I got sick, there was a kind of a surge, like not a huge surge, but different companies would pitch, hey, you want to represent our brand, and you got to be so careful who you associate with.
Yeah.
And like there's groups like Tap Cancer Out that I would partner with them all day. That's a great cause.
Mm-hmm.
But then I fell upon this group, this company, Anaconda Fightwear, and they are amazing. They're amazing to work with. They really care about athletes and promoting their sport.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a pure connection. So I'm like, oh, these people are good people. I'm going to work with them. It was a typical sponsorship kind of relationship. They would send me a product. I would test it out. They wanted to know honest feedback, how it went.
Yeah.
I'd shoot a video. I'd take some pictures with it. And it was very symbiotic that way. And then I've always, not always, maybe for like the last year or two, wanted to do some kind of jiu-jitsu competition in our community, because we always have to travel. We have to go Boise, Salt Lake, like hours and hours of driving to get to any kind of jiu-jitsu competition. I was like, man, we never get to do it in our own backyard.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to hold something here. And I really like the format of an open rule set invitational, where you handpick some of the best guys you can find.
Yeah.
Open up the gates to what they can do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
Just make the other guy tap.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I only wish that you would have had it a week later.
I
'Cause
know.
I'm
I
going to be
didn't
out
know.
of town. No, you're good.
But yeah, so I had already planned it, and I was crunching numbers. I had all the information, the costs, and everything like that, and I was ready to do it out of pocket.
Yeah.
And I had this idea. I was like, these guys are super cool, and we communicated all the time. It's like, I'm just going to pitch them the idea.
Yeah.
Like, hey, would you be interested in partnering with me on this? And they responded with like not only partnering, but hey, we'll sponsor the whole thing.
That's awesome.
And all they want in return is a little exposure. They want
Yep.
we're going to take lots of pictures, lots
Cool.
of video.
Good.
So it's good for the athletes too.
Yep.
So a lot of these guys they're jiu-jitsu fighters, they're MMA fighters. So it's building their personal brand too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and that's this Saturday.
It's this Saturday.
And you booked the Romance Theater.
The Romance Theater. So I can tell you what inspired me. Initially, it was watching a lot of the Eddie Bravo Invitationals, the EBIs.
Yeah.
And I just love that kind of format. Because, like, man, I came up in the cage fighting era of MMA where it's like, it's kind of like the lower class, rougher dudes do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't have a great social status.
Yeah.
So I liked how they kind of elevated it to it was a higher class event. Like, this is a sporting event with athletes, professional athletes, you know? And I was like, ooh, I like that vibe. And that's what I wanted. I wanted that kind of feel to it where like, this is a legitimate sporting event.
That's
like,
really
you need
cool.
a stage, you need to perform and I want it to be watchable.
Yep.
Because I freaking love jiu-jitsu.
Well, I need it to be watchable because I'm not going to be here.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to record it. So
Okay, good.
I'll get it for you. But I love jiu-jitsu. I love watching jiu-jitsu. I have a hard time watching black belt jiu-jitsu gi matches because they're so boring.
Yeah.
And they could go a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this has to be a watchable event. So it's no gi,
So,
sub only.
Okay.
Only way to win is to tap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of time limits?
So I have it at 10-minute rounds.
Cool.
So you get 10 minutes to get the other guy to tap. If that doesn't happen, we're going to very much just straight up borrow the EBI overtime rules. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but so basically what happens is you literally flip a coin. Let's say you and I were flipping the coin. You won the coin toss. You get to pick either seated back mount
Okay.
or the seated armbar position,
Yeah.
spider web.
Yeah.
You get to pick one or the other, and then we'll swap in a minute, and it's fastest sub, longest ride time, or fastest escape.
Okay.
So there's always a winner.
Yeah.
No judge needed.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's going to be awesome.
It's gonna be pretty cool.
What this doesn't matter, but like what kind of prizes?
So that was the really interesting thing too. Normally, for especially like local competitors, they end up paying to go to tournaments.
For sure. Yep.
Like that's usually the what happens. For this one, I did not want that. So it's costing them nothing but the time and the energy to travel here. Other than that, first place gets $500,
Sweet.
which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you normally have to pay to compete,
Absolutely.
getting paid to compete is pretty cool.
Oh, for sure.
So $500, and then I had a Gandy Blacksmithing, which is a friend of mine, Dan Gandy in Pocatello. He is a blacksmith, and he made a custom forged knife.
Oh, cool.
So
I saw that on social media. That looks so good.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
So he made this knife because I was like, man, we got to have a medal or a belt or something for the winner. I was like, that's so generic.
Yeah.
Everybody does that. So I had this, I thought, like, let's make a knife.
Yeah, that's way cool.
So it's going to be a custom knife. It's got scales on the handle. And
Yeah, is it blue?
it's like a blue and purple.
Yeah.
It
looks so good.
It looks so cool. So that's what the winner gets, $500 and this custom forged knife. I wish I could give a prize to every single combatant. But what I did get from Anaconda, they were very, very generous, and they're going to provide each athlete with a rash guard and shorts, and they get to keep those. Those are theirs.
That's awesome.
So that's cool. They get to compete for free.
Yep.
And that's what I keep telling them. It's like, worst case scenario, you come out of it with free gear. So that's
Absolutely.
cool.
Yeah, and lots of lessons.
Yeah, lots of lessons.
That's what competing is.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
High level training.
And honestly, I've done a lot of just local little CrossFit competitions. You sign up, it's $100, but you get a T-shirt. Like, I'm happy for the T-shirt.
It's embarrassing what I'll do for a T-shirt.
I know. Yeah.
But then Anaconda's sending a bunch of extra stuff too, so we'll have extra prizes just to give out to whoever shows up to watch.
It's really cool.
So you should show up. Anybody who wants to show up and attend, like, you're got a really good chance of getting free gear, free rash guards, shorts. They have this custom knee brace that they have. It's the wrapped one.
I've seen that. That's
it's
cool.
pretty comfy. It's fun. It's cool to roll in.
Yeah.
I've even weightlifted in it. So it's
okay.
kinda
Well,
nice.
and you can strap it kind of how tight you want it, right?
Yeah, you can change the tightness, and what I've played with is kind of cool because when you cross it, just like you do with like your weightlifting knee straps, you can adjust where you need that X, that's tension.
Yeah.
So I do that a lot.
That's cool.
Like, oh, my ACL versus my MCL today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I love innovative companies and just how you networked with them is the same way you networked with your wife. Like good, long-lasting relationships.
Yeah. Well, and that was something that was taught to me by a couple different mentors. Is like you got to build relationships.
Yeah.
Everything you do is based on relationships. It seems like a spreadsheet. It seems like numbers. It seems like math. But really, it's relationships that grease the wheels that make things happen.
And it's really what matters. I mean, honestly, like my wife and I have talked about it. If just everything crashed, we have such a good group of friends.
Yeah,
like
it wouldn't matter.
we could go to McDonald's, right? Maybe not McDonald's. Maybe that's the wrong. But, come over and eat at our house. Like just that network.
You'd be all right.
We'd be all right.
Yeah.
We put a lot of emphasis on, what success is in this society, but success is networking.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, absolutely. Do you enjoy what you're doing?
Yeah.
Do you enjoy who you're doing it with?
Exactly.
Success.
Yeah. Sadly, we don't live in a world where a lot of people are doing what they want to be doing.
No, they hate what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I get it. You got to pay bills.
You have to pay bills for sure. But I do believe that most people can pay their bills doing what they want.
I think so
they just
too.
don't know.
That's
why we're here.
They're afraid to jump.
Yeah. So what made you jump?
It's like, and my wife always jokes about this because I'll be like, you know what? I have an idea. And she goes, oh, that means I have work to do. I'm
That's
like,
exactly how my wife
do.
is. I'm the starter and she's the runner.
Yeah, and it's good because my wife is very pragmatic. She's a planner. She organizes. She's very good. That's how her brain works. She makes lists. And I come up with ideas and I pull triggers.
Yeah.
Like, man, you want someone to just do it? I'll just do it.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's the only way to get things done. It's like they talk about like paralysis by now.
Yeah, analysis
by
paralysis.
Yeah, that kind of thing. It's like I don't have that. And so and I try not to be too impulsive with my decisions, but if you give me some facts, I'm like, okay, I can really quickly, and maybe it's the law enforcement. It's like, oh, I can analyze that and be like, boom, we need to do this now.
Yeah.
So, and I think if you wait too long, you'll talk yourself out of almost anything.
Well, I think you'll talk yourself out of it, and I also think there's some. This is just me, but there's some sort of frequency that's coming out of your brain that's going to make someone else start it.
Oh yeah.
So, you got to jump on it.
You do.
The TV. Yeah, I'm from Rigby, so
Yeah.
Philo T. Farnsworth invented the TV, but this is way before a lot of communication was going on. There were like 5 other people around the world that were creating the TV at the same time.
Yeah.
You're like, how's some dude in Rigby, some guy in Japan, some guy in China, a couple guys in the United States building the same thing at the same time?
Wild, right?
Yeah, they never knew about each other.
They just
the first.
They
one
weren't homies. They weren't
yeah,
friends.
Yeah, just pretty interesting stuff. But they all pulled the trigger, and then one got a patent first.
Right.
Kind of cool.
Kind of cool. People ride that kind of energy and that wavelength.
Yeah.
And it's cool when you get people like that in the same room together.
Oh yeah.
And like fireworks.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Consciousness.
It is
something that
Yeah.
we're not taught.
We're not taught.
Mean, maybe in religion we're taught it a little bit more, but
sure,
in school they're definitely not saying like, are you children meditating every day? Are you really trying to connect with nature?
Right.
Are you trying to connect with a higher power?
Yeah, they don't teach that.
No.
They don't teach that. And it's something that's interesting when we talk about combatives and fighting. It's like I try to get people to pay attention to their instincts.
Yeah.
Their animalistic, intrinsic instincts, their gut reactions.
Yeah.
Your spiritual intuition, whatever you want to call it, there's that voice that warns you of danger. Animals pay attention to it, but we train ourselves out of it.
For sure.
Like, oh, that's not real. That's just some paranoid thought.
Yep.
Like if you can train yourself to pay attention to that, even if you can't articulate or explain why, it's like you can keep yourself out of a lot of danger and you can access things that you wouldn't have normally perceived.
Yeah.
Just by paying attention, like, oh, I got a gut feeling about this.
Yeah.
People write that off.
Yeah.
There's a lot to that.
Yeah. Well, don't we have as many, I read somewhere we have as many neurons in our gut as we have in our brain or more.
Yeah.
And so you got the old ancient talk that's like, oh, I have a gut feeling.
Right.
Well, that gut feeling's real.
It's real.
It's actual neurons that are firing.
That are firing off. And your body's like, hey, Pay attention.
Yeah, what food are like? This could go deep. What food are we
Yes.
putting into our body? What are we
Yes.
exposing ourselves to? What addictions or whatever it is that's just messing up that connection. That
Dude, and this is so a very natural segue, but like talking about 2018. It's when I was diagnosed with colon cancer.
Yeah,
And I've been weightlifting since I was 16 years old. I was like, and back in that time, like as a kid, like I talked about, scrawny little kid, picked on a lot. I had a couple close friends growing up, but my best friends, and I was a comic book nerd before it was cool. Like it was not cool, guys. Back in the day, I suffered a lot for liking comic books, but those were my friends. Like I grew up with the Captain America and superhero comics, and Superman was my jam for like as a younger kid. And I was like, man, if I could only do the things that he could do.
yeah,
But that's fantasy.
yeah,
And then you get a little older, and you start looking at Batman. You're like, oh man, Batman's a badass.
yeah.
He has no superpowers, none at all.
He just has a ton of money.
But he made himself
Yeah.
into a superhero, right?
Yep.
He got a ton of money, but he
Yeah.
made himself into a superhero. I'm like, I can do that.
Yeah, I can be Batman.
Yeah, I could be Batman.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
Like you step into, you probably empathize with this thought too. I can step into a weight room and I can make myself stronger.
Yeah.
I can make myself faster. I can learn to be better at protecting myself and the people I love.
yeah,
So I can transform myself into a stronger person that way. And at first it was all very physical protection for me, but like, there was a huge spiritual mental side of it that switched me way before then. So I've been weightlifting for a long time. Ever since got introduced to that weight room by my track coach at like 14, I'm like, oh, I need to do more of this.
yeah,
And very typical like approach to weightlifting and like the diet. Lots of protein.
Yep.
Multiple chicken breasts a day. Like so much meat, so much protein, and that's how I ate for years.
yeah,
Then in 2018, I got colon cancer, stage 3 colon cancer. They had to remove over a foot of my intestines, some lymph nodes, resection everything, sew me back up. But then you're left afterwards going, okay, how do I eat? What do I do now?
Yeah.
There's actually very little research and very little guidance after that. Once they get
Yeah.
you like no evidence of disease, peace out. Good luck. God bless.
Dang. Yeah,
So I left with a lot of questions. But ever since then, I've kind of evolved, and I eat a completely plant-based diet now.
so you are okay. As I'm out there pushing that everyone needs a gram of protein per day.
That's fine,
Yeah.
because it's weird because people get dogmatic about this.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you know. It's like, oh, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I very much believe, although we're all kind of built with the same hardware, diet is a very specific
I think
thing,
so too.
person to person. Like,
Absolutely.
Your needs are going to be totally different than my needs.
Yep.
I might have a genetic predisposition for the disease that I got,
Yeah,
whereas you have a zero risk for that.
Yeah.
So it's not like a blanket answer.
yeah, for sure. So how do you eat? I mean, you say mostly plant based.
Mostly plant-based. So for a while there was like strict vegan.
Yeah,
And this is a really random story, man. This is really weird. I ended up going on Dr. Oz to teach
I didn't know that.
teach
That's
some
awesome.
self-defense stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to Dr. Oz about this, and super cool guy, by the way.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, have you thought about, like, because I don't drink milk, of course, or anything.
Yeah.
But have you thought about adding in some good cheese? I'm like,
Yeah.
cheese.
Yeah.
He's like, prebiotics and probiotics. And he gave me this whole lecture about prebiotics and probiotics. He's like, not like craft singles, but
yeah, actual real.
yeah,
Brolem
good cheese.
Yeah.
He's like, add some of that in.
Yeah.
Not a lot. Like, don't eat pounds of cheese. That's silly.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
I incorporate cheese in
started
my
you were
diet.
vegan, but then started incorporating some cheese.
Yeah.
What about eggs?
Occasionally, I don't eat a ton of eggs. It's weird. Some things don't taste the same to me anymore,
Yeah.
or like just preferentially.
Yeah.
During chemo, very sensitive to cold and to metal, which
Okay.
is pretty typical. But even though that's gone, like even tasting metal,
Yeah.
super sensitive now. I'm like, oh, and there's just certain tastes and things that I'm like, oh, I don't know why.
A metallic taste.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
eggs are one of those things that's like, I don't like that as much anymore.
Do you supplement protein with like plant protein powders, or are you really just eating mostly like real food?
Kind of like we were talking earlier. It's like I like to get my protein from food if
Yes.
possible, like green vegetables, legumes.
Yeah.
That's kind of my protein sources. If I have to, I'll use a plant-based protein powder. I really like the Orgain, those types of ones. I've used Ambrosia.
Okay.
That's a cool one.
Yeah, I don't even know any of these names because it's like it's a foreign world to me.
There's some, and it didn't used to exist.
Yeah.
Like it used to be like, you might, back in the day, you could get whey protein, maybe some casein, but like that was it.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, there's quite the market for it now.
Okay.
But yeah, I only use it if I have to.
Yeah.
Typically in the mornings or like pre-jujitsu because you don't want to have
Yeah.
a gut full of food.
For sure.
But yeah.
Well, it's cool that you found that about yourself because
Yeah.
a lot of people. I mean, we know it, we see it.
The standard American diet, man, sad.
Yep, it really is. Yeah, I worked on the ambulance for 10 years.
You've seen it.
I've seen it.
The number one killer of men is heart disease.
Yeah.
Number one cause of heart disease, obesity.
Yeah.
So
Yep. I've been on calls where we're about to take someone to the hospital and they're large and they're like, grab my Mountain Dew. Like, you don't need your Mountain
this is the
Dew.
last thing you need right now.
So, but it's good.
But I like to tell people all the time, it's like, okay, because they're like, oh, I just saw you eat like a chocolate chip cookie. Like, what are you doing? And I feel like people kind of hyper judge my diet.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you get that sometimes too. But I tell people, it's like, it's not that you can't ever indulge in these things.
For sure.
It's like Thanksgiving dinner. Thanksgiving dinner is great. Just don't eat Thanksgiving dinner every day.
Yeah.
That would be bad.
Yeah, even if you put green and red on a calendar and you're eating 80% green.
Yeah.
You know,
80-20.
Yeah.
You'd be fine.
Yep.
But most people don't do that. It's flipped.
No, it's so hard. And I mean, I think even the FDA My Plate, it's not really what we should be looking for.
No.
Like where you're basing things on vegetables and, I base things a lot on meat and vegetables.
Right.
It's just the natural foods.
Sure. And my wife, because she's a cancer survivor too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, we have great luck. We need to buy lottery tickets.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
But she's found a lot of success with kind of that kind of formula, like the Whole30 type thing, just whole foods.
Yep.
She doesn't do plant-based, so she eats like when she's on that, her post cancer symptoms are relieved.
Okay.
So whole foods, vegetables, fruits, meat.
Yeah.
Man, she feels amazing doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
People don't pay attention to that.
CrossFit, Greg Glassman, meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar.
Yeah.
Like it would change.
Dude, I started reading Stan Efferding stuff like years ago.
Yeah.
I listened to your episode with him. I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Got to talk to Stan.
Yeah, I know. We saw him at CrossFit Regionals one year, and there's this big dudes walking around in shorts, and he was pulling a cooler. And then I saw a vertical diet on his shirt. I'm like, that's Stan Efferding. Go over and talk to him.
Who else could that be?
Oh, he's such a nice guy, too. Just so nice. He's like, here's my number. You just text me. Let's do a podcast.
That's
like,
awesome.
Just,
that's awesome.
Every once in a while, like if it's his birthday or something, just text him. He still probably doesn't really know who I am. He's done a couple episodes, but
it's amazing how people like that, you'd think they'd be kind of standoffish, but like most of those guys, even though they look big, they look scary, they look intimidating, it's like their hearts are soft. Like they are softies.
Yeah. He's created several multi-million-dollar businesses. And he's willing to take my phone number to come on my show for an hour.
Right? How cool is that?
Yeah.
Cool
super good guy.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So you've been reading his stuff then? Or,
and I tried. It was really sad because like I started like getting into that right before I got sick.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh man, I never really got to test it.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I need to ask more about that and see how he likes doing that.
Yeah, I feel the best when I'm eating mostly like vertical style.
Yeah, like the monster mash.
Yeah, the monster. I mean, I've done monster mash a lot,
dude.
And the thermos.
Simple.
Yeah, the thermos really is it's kind of the key behind it.
I think sometimes people overcomplicate it.
We totally overcomplicate.
They want to like create this fancy food and they go on Instagram like, oh, look at this crazy recipe. Yep. And I'm sure it tastes amazing, but for day-to-day life, that's super impractical, especially if you're a busy person.
My wife will throw some rice in the pan, a little bit of butter just to make the rice, taste better, whatever.
Right.
Then she throws in the spinach. Then she throws in some eggs.
Yeah.
It's the best breakfast.
It's easy.
She'll put in a little bit of cheese.
Probably
Super
tastes great.
easy. Tastes great. And it's got everything you need. Yeah. Like as far as Stan and vertical diet type stuff, he talks about you need a carrot or a few carrots. You need an orange. You need to supplement probably some magnesium. Right. He talks about egg, red meat.
Yeah.
But then that meat, or protein, because he works with people that are plant-based as well. Rice and protein is going to be how you're either gaining muscle and losing body fat or, going in whatever direction. And what's cool is you've got Hafthor Bjornsson, Brian Shaw, these big dudes.
Big, strong dudes.
Their horizontal diet is still eating the carrots, eating the egg, eating the orange, having the orange juice. And they're doing that, but so is the 110-pound figure competitor.
Right.
So it's pretty cool.
What's really interesting is because digestively my guts are a hot mess. They're basically a jigsaw puzzle, but they work.
Yeah.
But super sensitive. But adding the orange juice or something like that actually helps a lot.
That's cool.
So there's that components of those things that I try to pay attention to.
When Dr. Oz told you about the cheese, did that help?
Oh, it does.
Like the pre and post?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I started you get onto that wave and you start deep diving and get down that rabbit hole. So I'm like, oh, what about other fermented foods?
For sure.
Your
kefir and
kimchi and all this stuff. So
cool.
I definitely incorporate those things into there too. I did. I wanted to see what it would feel like, but I did 5 days of nothing but kimchi and sauerkraut and those kind of pickled type foods.
Yeah,
that's all I ate for 5 days. And it was too long.
Yeah.
Calorically, it wasn't enough.
Oh, yeah.
But it did a good gut reset. It'd be like doing a long fast.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it felt
like. Do you fast at all?
Once in a while. I tried the intermittent fasting for a while. But here's the dilemma that I run into. And maybe you got some good advice. So I digest things quickly, but it's not efficiently.
Yeah.
Quick digestive system, that's good. But it's not efficiently. So you and I could eat the same meal, but I won't get nearly as many nutrients out of it because my digestive system's not as good.
So you kind of need to keep that food coming.
Coming, or else once it hits and you're like, oh, I'm kind of hungry. Well, I'm ready to fall asleep because I don't have enough in me.
Okay.
So it's interesting. It's like a really fast burning furnace, but it doesn't burn efficiently.
Yeah.
Which is a great combo.
Has the post-cancer and after the surgery, has it messed with blood sugars and stuff? I mean,
not too bad. And talking to my oncology doctors and things like that, they attribute both my survival and my current health to being physically fit and active before, during, and after. Because a lot of times the old school thought was if you're on chemotherapy, you should just chill, stop what you're doing, just rest, which is valid. You do need to do a lot of that.
Yeah.
But I lifted weights during chemo.
Cool.
I did jujitsu during chemo. I did jujitsu with a chemo pump attached to my port in my chest.
Yeah.
Here, hold this. Don't spill it. It's radioactive. So I did all of that. So the recovery was much faster, much quicker, much better resulted than had I not.
Well, you're keeping that. I mean, you watch the muscle wasting in people.
You do. It goes fast.
Yeah.
Fast.
How is it to eat? I mean, you kind of throw up everything you eat, don't you?
And that's kind of that's why they don't stress the nutrition as much. They're like, whatever you can keep down, eat it. Yeah. So in the moment during treatment, whatever I could eat, I would just eat. So you just, whatever you can keep in your body. But post is and it was great. All the doctors around here are amazing. I always feel like sideways blessed because not blessed that I got sick.
Yeah.
But if you had to pick a place to get it, this is the place. Because we have amazing doctors and medical people around this area. And so they offered a lot of things, but meeting with the nutritionist, it was very much there wasn't much there for you post.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot of advice.
So interesting.
It's a really underwhelming area of study. There's not a lot done.
So really, your post nutrition, you're just finding what has worked for you.
Yeah. And it probably works for other people too, but I don't believe in blanket answers to that.
For sure. Well, especially when it comes to nutrition. I mean, I've worked with a lot of people over the years, and
there's a lot of
almost
stuff going on there,
everybody has a different thing that makes them tick.
It's a complex system.
Yeah, nutrition coaching's hard.
Yeah.
When you're like,
I benefit. This is a silver lining because I still get follow-ups. I get blood work done every 2 months.
Yeah.
It's can you imagine if you could see where all your blood panels were every 2 months?
Yep.
You could make adjustments. That's what I get to do.
Yeah, that is cool.
So it's kind of a nice little edge that I get.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, someone will say, "Hey, I want a nutrition coach. How much does it cost?" And I'm like, "Well, let's chat about that.
Let's chat about
it. It's $100 a month." Well, that's expensive. I'm like, "Yeah, but I have to learn you."
Yeah.
And then you have to be accountable to me. And
here's the cautionary thing, because I'm sure you tell this to those people too, is that you can't just hire a personal trainer, because then most of them, not all of them, there's some good trainers out there, but a lot of them are just going to reduce your calories and try and get you to lose weight quickly. You're like, oh, look, success.
Yeah.
And dude, that's not how it works.
No, no. When you take someone that's eating 1,800 calories a day and you bump them to 2,400, they're like, that makes no sense to me.
It doesn't make any sense to them
I
because it's calories in, calories out, right?
Do that. Like just
trust me.
Trust Give me 4 months.
Right.
Yeah.
But that goes against everything they've been taught about weight loss or nutrition their whole life.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, you just drop your calories and you eat less and you do more.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can't work your way out of garbage nutrition.
Nope. Don't listen to the My Plate.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it.
So transitioning a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Bring me through your jiu-jitsu. And because you're a black belt now.
Yes. I'm a black belt under Rigan Machado.
Okay, cool.
So
yeah. So can you bring me through that?
yeah. So
I mean, it's a long process.
It's a long
Makes
process.
you patient.
On average, it takes 10 to 20 years to get your black belt in jiu-jitsu. So it's a long haul.
Yeah.
Most martial arts, knowing from experience, you could get from white to black belt in a few years.
Yeah.
It could happen. Taekwondo, karate. And I'm not talking bad about any of those martial
No,
arts.
for
I think
sure.
they all kind of
they get their place.
play their place. But mine started with that MMA. And it was kind of backwards. Most people now learn jiu-jitsu and get into MMA. It was backwards for me. I got into MMA, then I got into jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Starting there in Alaska with those guys was great. I moved here, and there was no jiu-jitsu. Like the closest jiu-jitsu at the time was Mark Massey's in Pocatello.
Okay.
And so Mark kind of took me under his wing as a blue belt.
Yeah.
So I opened my first school as a blue belt.
Awesome.
Which is, if you guys don't know, that's incredibly ballsy.
Yeah, for sure.
I look at that now, I'm like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
But Mark was super supportive, and I don't think I would have made it without him.
Yeah.
Like, he very much was my foundation. He's a judo black belt, karate black belt, and a jiu-jitsu black belt. So I have learned a lot from that man over the years.
Yeah.
But he also introduced me to Rigan Machado. So I became part of the Rigan Machado family, their association. And then last year I got my black belt.
It's really cool.
From him personally in Hollywood, California, which was super cool.
Oh, that is cool. So how many years?
About 12 years total. Yeah. It takes years in between belts.
Sure.
It's pretty wild. I spent the first white to blue belt as kind of a knuckle dragger, coming from MMA.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was very top game, very pressure passing. That was kind of my game. And if you've rolled with me in the past couple of years, you're like, really? Because that's not what I do anymore. So a lot of it now, it evolved. So I got to my blue belt kind of with that mentality. And it was really funny. He probably doesn't remember doing this. But the first black belt I ever rolled with was Jarvis Edwards out of Anchorage. But he choked me unconscious.
Yeah.
Because I was very ignorant. I was trying to crush him, and he just rolled me over and just put me in a mounted triangle, and I'm tapping, and he just looked at me and no.
Yeah.
And just let me go out.
Yeah.
And I woke up with a lot more intelligence than when I went out.
It's like he choked the ego right out of you.
Right.
Strangled the ego
He
out
did.
of you.
So I got to blue belt with that mentality. But once I got to blue belt, Carl St. George, he told me, hey, we need to really develop this guard game. Yeah. So from now until I tell you not to, every round you do, every drill, I want you on your back.
Cool.
Play your guard all day long. And I got smashed for so long. But very much evolved into a better guard game. Very much love things like half guard and X guard now. Those are my jams.
That's cool.
So I play with those a lot. And it was interesting. I got exposed to leg locks early on in my jiu-jitsu journey. Back again, before it was cool.
Yeah. Yep.
And now it's I feel very vindicated because it's very popular.
Oh, for sure.
So people are like, hey, can you show me some of that?
Yeah.
I was like, yes, I can. I've
Time
been doing
with
it
Joe
for
Rogan.
years.
I was listening to Joe Rogan before people thought he was cool.
Right.
Yeah.
But back, I don't know how much of this you want to get into. But,
all of it.
So traditionally, for jiu-jitsu, leg locks were kind of taboo. So traditional Brazilians, and it's nothing against them, but they just considered it kind of dirty fighting.
Yeah.
And the rule set subsequently reflected that. In a lot of competitions, they weren't even legal. But lately, in the past few years, there's been kind of a surge and a movement towards that and allowing that. And it's evolving into this very new game, and it's very cool to see because it's very much a component of submission fighting.
Yeah.
So you see it in catch wrestling, catch as catch can. All the Japanese fighters, they've been doing them for eons. So
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what seems to be happening. You know, I was
Yeah.
talking to James. James Enfield was actually the last podcast on here, and he was saying, you know, every once in a while in UFC, they'll be like, "There's this new move," and he's like, "Actually, that's like the first Japanese jiu-jitsu move. Like, just look it up."
Yeah, and you never invent a move. Like you can popularize a move.
Yeah.
It's like you think, you know, anybody invents something, but if you're good enough at a move to where they start calling it after you, you're probably pretty good at that move.
For sure.
But yeah, there's a lot of moves that have been around for centuries, literally centuries, that we're just kind of working into a modern game.
It's such an interesting.
But culturally, we've kind of pushed a lot of things out.
Yeah.
And I think it more so is to favor certain things. There's nothing sadder to me than meeting like a black belt that has no idea how to do a leg lock. I'm like, someone did you a disservice.
Yeah.
You should know how to do this.
Yeah. Wasn't it was it Alio Gracie that said it takes at least 10 years to get a black belt because you can fool me for 9 years?
You're right.
Something like that.
Right.
So.
But yeah, like, and you think about it strategically, tactically, and John Danaher talks about this. Like, if you got someone who's a lot bigger than you, a lot stronger than you, you're going to have a heck of a time, like arm barring or Americaning that person. You've probably tried.
Yeah.
Like, throwing an Americana on a really big dude. Like, that's
it's tough. Yeah.
I can ankle lock the piss out of them.
Yeah.
It takes nothing. So, everybody chokes out and everybody's legs break. Here's a really interesting thing, though. It's like, because I have a lot of history with this, man, from law enforcement to bouncing.
Yeah.
Like, I've fought with guys on the street that were high out of their minds, drunk.
Yeah.
And you can break their arm and they're still fighting.
Yeah.
There's two ways they're going down. You can choke them unconscious, or you can break their leg.
Yeah.
Even a guy who's high out of his mind, he's taking meth, whatever, feels no pain. He still needs to stand up to fight you.
For sure.
You break his leg, he's not standing up to fight you.
And then they proverbially handcuff police and not let them choke people out.
Dude, I can speak on this stuff too.
Yeah.
So I am a subject matter expert in use of force for law enforcement. So this year I'll be getting my master's, or not my master's, they call it a master instructor.
Yeah.
For the state of Idaho in use of force,
Yeah.
arrest techniques, which in the past, like I've been doing it for years, teaching it for years. And in the past, our old system was very much like Aikido based, like standing wrist locks.
Yeah.
Which I'm sorry is absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Not to trash on anybody, but what we were doing it for, like if you get a really high level Aikido guy, yeah, he's going to break your arm.
Yeah.
But this stuff was not conducive of what we were trying to do.
Well, and it's tough because you're taking someone who's never trained and you're
Right.
trying to teach them a high level
exactly
skill.
It's a very intricate
Yeah.
technique. But the 2018 and beyond, Idaho moved to a system called Archon, which is arrest control techniques. And it's a system that was developed in California, LAPD. And it's very much, it's a carbon copy nearly of Gracie's survival tactics. So
cool.
90% jiu-jitsu. I'm like, thank you. Like, this is what I've been doing at work for years anyway.
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice. It was another vindicating moment there. So that's what the cops in Idaho train under. They train a lot of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Are they able to strangle?
Well, here's the thing. So the state in the program, they call it a carotid restraint.
Cool.
So, and it's really good to clarify these things.
Oh, I agree.
Because like a choke,
you hear choke and
it's
you're like,
very much the colloquialism.
what
like,
does the movie
verbiage.
show?
Yeah.
That you choke someone for 10 seconds and they're dead.
Right.
You know, and they're on the windpipe.
Right.
So really, it's a strangle.
So
it's a carotid.
And you're a great guy to describe this. Like a choke is literally something stopping the air.
Yeah.
Like if you had a piece of food in your throat and you were choking, that's
the police is stuffing. They're choking.
It's a funny visual, right?
Yeah.
A strangle would be like someone cutting off maybe the blood and the air, like stranglehold. When we as law enforcement apply these types of techniques, we call it a carotid restraint, in the fact that we're just interrupting the blood flow long enough to get you handcuffed. That is it.
And it's not
seconds.
detrimental to the individual at all.
No.
It's
the
quick,
safest. I've done it. It's
easy.
the safest thing you can do for them.
Yeah.
Because you look at the alternatives, and the culture for law enforcement suffers from tool dependency.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I love firearms. I believe in firearms. That is a very high level of force.
Yeah.
So is a beanbag or a taser. Like those are very high levels of force. We call them less than lethal. That means you're right. That's one step below shooting them in the head.
Yeah, and sometimes they are lethal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times they're not very effective.
For sure.
But I can put this restraint on a person and put them to sleep. Like it's literally sleeping.
Yep.
And it's maybe 10 seconds. I teach the new recruits like 10, 15 seconds, then they have to move on to another technique if it's not working. But in that interim, we can get them handcuffed safely, and we're going to give them medical attention afterwards regardless.
Exactly.
So it's the safest thing to do. But as far as your question goes, like as far as the state of Idaho, it's in the curriculum.
Cool.
We teach every new recruit that. Even if they're not allowed to do it, they have to learn it because it can be done to you.
Yes.
So to understand a technique and how to defend it, you have to know the other side of it.
That's why you get tasered. That's why you get pepper sprayed.
Right.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, it's up to the individual agencies whether they allow it or not.
Cool.
So most agencies allow, not all of them. There's some that don't. Our agency allows it.
Good.
So
Well, they just
plenty
need
of research for
educated
it.
then.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what
really
it comes
what it
down
is.
to is just educating.
Education. Yeah, if you don't allow it, you're just ignorant as to what is actually going on.
Yeah. And you're watching movies.
You're watching too many movies.
I mean, that's
Yeah, it's one of the safest ways to restrain somebody. And when when a situation reaches that kind of critical mass, it's like that's what you need to do.
Yeah, and it needs
Force
to
them
happen
get hurt.
now.
Yeah, now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ways you could do that. We always think of, especially for law enforcement, they always think of like, oh, it's like basically like a rear naked choke.
Yeah.
But a carotid restraint could be a triangle hold.
Yeah, for sure.
It could be a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, and in Idaho, people are wearing jackets a lot.
A lot.
A lot. It's easier to choke someone out with a shirt than it is a gi.
Yeah.
So.
And people kind of discount how well trained we get around here. Like it's a problem. Like law enforcement need to train more. We always need to train more.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to
Everybody does. Yeah.
But I've worked in Alaska. I've worked in Idaho. I've worked with agencies in multiple other states, and a lot of them suffer way worse than we do as far as training goes. And for our curriculum, it's one of the best I've ever seen. It's pretty good. It's jiu-jitsu based. That's great.
Awesome.
We're getting more and more hours. So the post academy is requiring more and more hours for each officer to train in it. So that's good. So there are a lot of good things happening in Idaho for their law enforcement. And people should feel good about that.
Yeah.
Like the person responding to their 911 call probably knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's good.
No, I love that. And there's so much emphasis in weird places,
Yeah.
defund the police or whatever.
That's why I laugh.
Or
I was
fund.
like, we don't have funds. What are you talking about? We don't have any money anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Or fund more training. Like what are we trying to do here? Right. But then the first people to, I'm probably going way too political here, but first people to call the police are the ones who want to defund them.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are against violence per se, but they want to call the police because they need a problem fixed for it.
And it's a societal thing that people, and it's probably good because we live in a time where and you'd never know this watching the news. We live in the least violent time in history.
Yeah.
It is the most peaceful time it's ever been in history. You'd never know that, but it's true. And so we have a culture now that is very unfamiliar with true violence. A lot of them have never experienced it. Some have. Some live in rougher areas or from rougher areas.
Yeah.
I've experienced plenty of real violence in my life. And if you've never seen it, you don't understand it.
Yeah.
So sometimes the only answer for violence is violence. But the way I teach it and the way I look at it, this was described to me. I did a training session with Carlos Machado, and it was just for cops. He came here a couple of years ago and did one just for cops. It was super cool, little group of us. But I loved the way he described what we were doing. We were just doing a takedown to a cuffing position. But the way he moved and the way he did it, and this is how he described it. He's like, it's physical de-escalation.
Yeah.
As soon as I touch you, everything's slowing down and becoming safer and safer and safer. And that's how
cool.
we should do it. It's so cool, right?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, someone will come into jiu-jitsu not knowing anything and they want to roll hard because it's probably some physical thing that we have.
I got to prove myself.
Yeah. But you got to slow down and learn it.
You do.
So then you get someone like Carlos Machado that really knows what he's doing.
Really knows what he's doing.
It slows down in his mind,
Yeah.
And that's where you're at in Blackbelt. We'd go roll together and I'm trying to think of all these little things that I can do or just survive. And you're like, just slowed down.
slow
and
down.
You know where it's all at. And
Yeah,
cool.
you get to, and we use the term in jiu-jitsu like flow,
Yeah.
flow rolling, flowing. You got to flow, but it's very much it's becoming very much a popular term in psychology.
yeah, the
There's
flow state.
The flow state.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you've ever read like The Rise of Superman.
Huh.
Super great book.
The Rise of Superman. Okay.
Talking about kind of that flow state. It focuses more on like extreme athletes, but kind of how like you could meditate and get to kind of that flow state where you're, whatever cheesy term you want to use, one with the environment, one with the world, the universe. A shortcut would be to like go skydiving.
Yeah.
You're going to forget whether you left the oven on or whatever.
Yep.
It's going to be very focused and flowing in that moment. You're going to be one with that moment.
Yeah.
You have no choice. So, and that's kind of what jiu-jitsu does for people.
I
It's
agree.
meditative.
The last
Instantly.
45 minutes of randori, like rolling.
Oh my goodness.
It is the most meditative time. I've
Your
ever
head
had
is
in my life.
clear.
Yep. Yep.
It's wild.
It's really cool.
Yeah, and people think of like, oh, meditation is sitting in the lotus position for 2 hours, but like a few rounds of rolling jiu-jitsu, your mind is clear, you're calm. I've never been more chill. Like when
Yeah.
you're done, you'd think you'd be all jacked up and amped up, like, oh, I feel so relaxed right now.
Yeah. It's
That's what
cool.
it does for people. It just relieves that stress.
That's awesome.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. People should definitely do it.
Yeah, I think everybody should do it.
Yeah. No, I think so too. Now, from a police officer standpoint, a lot of people are starting to train.
Yes,
So
more than ever
that's-
before.
yeah.
Like it used to be very few of us. Very, very few of us. And it was
Yeah.
scary, like, oh, is the guy that's responding on this call, is he going to even know what to do?
Yeah. Now,
But now more than ever,
so police are, but so are criminals.
so are criminals. And that's what I talk to guys about, because the mentality back in the day was, well, oh, we're just gotta handcuff this drunk guy. That's all we need to prepare for. This guy who's high. I don't want you to be prepared for the junkie that barely weighs 100 pounds.
Yeah.
I want you to be prepared for that heavyweight amateur MMA fighter that decided he's not going to jail today.
Yeah.
That's who I want you to be prepared for, and be like,
Yeah.
all right,
And there's more and more of those.
more and more every day. More and more every day. It doesn't take a lot of brain power to watch a UFC fight and figure out how to do a guillotine.
For sure. Yeah. Well, and you understand this better than anyone. You go white belt to blue belt. You
Right.
put someone
That's a jump.
a year and a half in.
That's a dangerous
jiu-jitsu. It is. They know 80% of jiu-jitsu at that point. And
Yeah.
It's just dialing it all in. So.
Yeah. That's what Higan told me when I got my purple belt. He's like, all the jiu-jitsu. Now it's just making it yours.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool, and it's constantly evolving. That's why I love it. And people create these barriers, like we talked about, like the leg lock thing. They create these barriers, and they try to limit it or box it in. But jiu-jitsu is different than any martial art I've ever done, because it's constantly evolving and changing and adapting and incorporating and sucking in more things. And I love that, because it's a never-ending puzzle. It's super, super deep water.
Yeah.
So there's only so many ways I can punch and kick somebody, and I love doing
Yeah.
that stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But I'll never learn all of jiu-jitsu, and that's fine by me,
Yeah.
because I love it when I see somebody do something that I've never seen before, and I'm like confused by it. I'm like,
Yeah.
what in the world did you just do?
Yeah.
And like you'd think that'd be a very frustrating moment, but to me, I'm like, oh shoot, I'm about to learn something.
That's awesome. Well, it's cool that you can take someone that's 20 years in, they've got a black belt.
And show them something new.
Yeah, they go to a weekend seminar, and they might not even learn something new.
It might just be a tiny detail.
They pull this little detail that they've skipped over for 20 years and haven't known, and all of a sudden it just
Right.
hones in their game even more.
And I get to travel a little bit, and if any of you travel, you should go out and even if you train at a home gym and you're out in another place, go visit somewhere.
Yeah.
Because these places, it's very much like family recipes. Like they have their own way. It's the same moves, it's the same techniques, but they have their flavor of doing it, and you're going to learn something from it.
That's cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm headed to a seminar this weekend in Ohio.
Nice.
And I've definitely never traveled that far for a seminar.
Dude, I've been all over. I've trained in a lot of different states. I trained with my buddies in New York at Marcelo Garcia's, and that was super fun. Bunch of Dagestanians just beat that crap out of me. It was great. I went to Hawaii and trained at the UFC gym there, and I was the smallest man in the room.
Dang.
was-
And you're a big dude.
It was
you're-
wild. I'm
you're
like,
jacked.
it's small man jujitsu today.
Yeah.
So you get somewhere no matter where you go. Like this last year, I went to Texas and we were in Dallas, and I went to 10th Planet North Dallas.
Yeah.
Great guys. They were so fun. Like you'll get something from everywhere.
That's cool. 10th Planet. Just such a funny name.
Dude, it's so funny.
Yeah.
I love those guys. I love
Yeah.
those guys.
Yeah.
They are, because we're not a 10th Planet school, but we like hanging out with them because, and they talk about this in tribes. You know,
Yeah.
there's heretics.
Yeah.
And there's heretics in every kind of group where like they're kind of pushing the boundaries, coming up with new things and new ideas. And we're very much jujitsu heretics. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, you've done that way for so long, but what if we did it this way?
What if we changed it? Yeah.
And they're like, oh.
Yeah,
So-
there's nothing wrong with change.
I always joke with my guys, like, you're a bunch of heretics.
Yeah.
A bunch of leg locking heretics. You know?
Yeah. Well, and then the funny thing is some of that change might be going back to the roots.
It might.
You know, it's
It
grabbing
might.
something from Japan and being like,
Yep.
we're going back to the roots. And then
Well,
you go, what
here's,
is that?
And here's like a great example. Wrestling. I've done wrestling since I was a kid. I'm not an amazing wrestler. I wish I had known more jiu-jitsu when I wrestled.
Yeah.
I probably would have been better at wrestling.
Yeah.
Honestly. But there's components from wrestling that jiu-jitsu doesn't do, which it very much could. One of the things that I teach guys in jiu-jitsu is to cradle. And wrestling, that is a wrestling 101 move.
Yeah.
Everybody learns how to do a cradle.
And
But
what is a cradle?
so it's basically compressing someone, and I have control of their head and at least one of their legs, and I bring my hands together and I lock them,
Okay.
so their head is cradled with.
Oh,
their leg.
yeah, yeah.
Every wrestler who's ever wrestled learns this.
Yeah.
But the reason it gets overlooked in jiu-jitsu is that there's no clear path to submission there. It's like,
Okay.
oh, why would I do that? I'm just trapping myself with him. But there's a bunch of stuff you can do off that, and it's such a good control position.
Mm-hmm.
Not used a lot in jiu-jitsu, but we use it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
but it's been around for probably thousands of years.
for sure.
Probably since.
The Olympics.
The
first Olympics. Yeah.
So that's not new.
Yeah.
But it's innovative.
Dude, there's wrestlers. I rolled with one on Monday. He's been to 3 jiu-jitsu classes. And I don't know anything about jiu-jitsu. I'm one
Dude, me
stripe on a white belt. But, you know, I was just thinking, hey, this new guy, you know,
Yeah.
3 days in, we'll do some back and forth. Like, I'll
Yeah.
give, I'll take, you know, that sort of thing. He's been wrestling since he was 5. The guy's like, he was
That's
good.
not a true
Yeah.
white belt, man.
Yeah.
And I get guys like that, and I love them. I love
Yeah.
wrestlers because they have an amazing work ethic and drive. And there's a lot that they need to learn. But it's if they respond one of the two ways, right? Like
Yeah.
if they respond with the, oh, I need to learn this,
Yeah.
they will get so much better.
Yeah. And that was
They will
this guy.
excel quickly. But a lot of times, those guys that have really high level wrestling, I'll take a guy like that to a competition because Nogi's a little different. A lot of times they just divide it by like beginner, intermediate,
Yeah.
advanced. I'm not going to let that guy do beginner Nogi.
Yeah.
He's not a beginner.
Yeah.
Like, he is at least intermediate if he's been going since he was 5.
Yeah,
Come
yeah.
on now.
Yeah.
He won't get anything out of beginner, and they'll just get trapped. Like it's a waste of time. Go to intermediate at least.
Yeah. Well, and this guy, you could tell he's definitely there to learn. It was cool.
Yeah, it's
You know,
cool. He'll be a monster.
Yeah, he'll be great. There were some times that he kind of he could have gone harder, but he was letting me. You know,
Oh, yeah.
which is perfect. You know, I'm a white belt. I'm just trying to learn.
It's fine.
So it's just back and forth.
Dude,
It's so good.
I'm going to plug this guy a little bit because I love him. One of the guys on our card, because we have on Saturday the Anaconda Invitational.
Yeah.
On the card, in between, because I wanted to give the fighters in the bracket time to rest, we have 3 super fights, super matches.
Cool.
So they're just exhibition matches. So there's no like prize for them. It's just for the love of a round, you know,
Yep.
competition round. But one of them is with one of my guys who's got a great wrestling background, but I handpicked his opponent, man. His name is Junior. He trains with my buddy Matt out of Driven Jiu-Jitsu in Boise. But Junior is a great guy. And about
Junior's the one out of Boise.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
about 6.5 feet tall and about 460 pounds.
Yeah.
He's lost a little weight, so he's a little light in the loafers right now, but he's a big boy.
Yeah.
But such a great roll.
Yeah.
And so I will give him credit for that. We rolled around a bunch, and he was so fun to roll with. Now, at any point, this man could like rip both my arms off. Like
Yeah.
he's just massive. He's so strong. But he didn't. We had a good jiu-jitsu round.
Yeah.
And that's how both of us get better.
Yeah. Dude, that's the funnest when it's just like I say give and take, you know.
Yeah.
And man, you just learn so much.
Learn so much.
Or even today, I was rolling and I was with the kid and he put me in an arm lock and I was like, all right, I'll tap, but stay here. Now do this. Now choke. Now this. It's just, man, it's so good.
Yeah.
So who's he paired up with?
He's paired up with one of my guys. His name's Hudson.
Okay.
But he's about half of Junior's size.
Yeah.
But a really great wrestler. Like, it'll be an amazing match because they're both go-getters.
I'm excited to get
dude,
that
it'll
video.
be amazing.
It's really cool.
So they're one of our super fights. Another one of my super fights is one of my guys, Colin. He works with me at the sheriff's office, but he's one of our purple belts.
Colin.
Problem? No, he's got dark hair.
Jed.
You're thinking Jed.
Yeah.
Jed moved away. I was so sad to see Jed go.
Okay.
The ginger ninja.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Colin. Yeah, I'm not sure.
You'll meet him, I'm sure. But and then we've got one female fight. Jessica Gaylor from Elite in Pocatello versus one of our girls here, Rachel Gonzalez. So that'll be fun. That'll be interspersed throughout. And mostly just to give them a little time on the mat and to give the other guys a little breather in between their matches, so we make sure we get some good matches.
Yeah. So 8 total matches.
So there'll be 8 total guys in the bracket. 8
total guys in the back.
And then 3 more extras.
Sweet. And which are the super fights?
Yeah, so it'll be like 11 people total.
All no-gi, submission only.
All no-gi, submission only.
Cool.
Which is a different rule set. That's the interesting thing about jiu-jitsu too, is like you could go from one competition to the next and the rule set could completely change.
Yeah.
So to me, it's growing up doing wrestling, like you can go folk style, collegiate, Greco-Roman. So it's changing rule sets. Okay, just let me know what the rules are today and we'll do that. So like you should be able to do that in jiu-jitsu too.
Yeah.
Okay, what are the rules today? Follow them.
Yeah.
and figure out how to win with the rule set you're given. I think that's great. I'm glad there's no universal rule set for it.
Yeah, for sure. Man, watching the no-gi is just impressive.
It's wild, right?
Yeah.
It's intense in that, and they're both good. I love the gi too. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing cooler than submitting somebody with their own clothes.
Yeah, for sure.
So sad.
I mean, I do enjoy the gi days more just because I can grab their gi.
Right.
But that also means they can grab my gi.
It's true.
So
it's true. They're both good. I think everybody should train in both.
Yeah. Well, your no-gi is gonna
even my
you a
MMA
lot
fighters.
better.
Even my MMA fighters, I make them train in the gi.
Yeah.
Because it's going to make them more tactical.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you can't get out of that escape as easily when you have a gi on, can you? But it'll make them better at that escape or better at that technique.
Yeah. I do. It's not like I've ever been super into this, but I do miss the days where, you had like the Gracies wearing their gis against the guys that didn't.
Oh, yeah.
And then they'd use their gi to choke
Right.
them out
And I
or
love
whatever.
watching, and I remember watching the first UFCs and thinking, man, that's wild. And I think about them, I'm like, yeah, that was cool. And it's definitely fun to go back and see those. And I get why they don't do that anymore.
For sure. Yeah.
It was pretty wild.
Yeah. It's such a funny time. I mean, he'd pull guard and everyone's like booing because they're like,
what is
this
he
is
doing?
boring. Start punching people. And he's like, well, I'm winning the fight.
I'm winning. So.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. People talked about like they used to say similar things about like George St. Pierre. Like, oh, his fight's kind of boring. It's like he's winning with the rule set.
Yeah.
Like, he just won. Like,
Yeah.
you can't knock him for that.
For sure.
So whatever rule set you're given, you got to learn to win with it. But people get constrained about what they think they should be doing in those situations. Like, oh, but especially in like combat sports, man, it's like your opinion matters nil. Like it is nothing unless you're willing to get in there and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I sat in the parking lot the first two times of jiu-jitsu. I was too intimidated.
It's totally normal, man. It's totally normal. And I forget sometimes, because I do try and make like our school very inviting, very calm. But I forget how intimidating that is.
Well, I hear people that do it here at our gym, at CrossFit. And for a while I was like, what? Like why? Why? Our coaches are inviting. Everybody wants you here. There's not a person here that wants to just beat you and everything.
No.
And then I go down, drove to Idaho Falls, sat in the parking lot. I'm going to look like an idiot in there. And I don't know anything I'm doing.
Right. And it's that fear of being bad at something or, trying something new. Like we kind of tie our egos into that a little bit. For sure. And your sense of self. Like that's hard. That's really hard. I think we just talked about yoga. I've been to like 2 yoga classes ever because I'm terrible at it. Yep. And I'm like, man, I look stupid
But
doing
I need to go do it twice a week.
right. I
We have
should.
a studio right next door
I
here,
know.
and I just never go.
I should go in there too.
Yeah.
I should be there with you.
Hold each other accountable. Little accountability group for yoga.
But it's kind of a funny quote. Gordon Ryan, inarguably the GOAT,
so
the best in the world, man. He says you got to be willing to suck to not suck.
Yeah.
It's like if you're not willing to suck at something long enough to get good at it, you're just going to continue to suck. So you got to be willing to suck or continue to suck.
Dude, that guy is he is so good.
So
and he's
good.
jacked,
Yeah.
which a lot of those guys aren't jacked.
Well,
you know,
and
so-
Firasa Hobby talks about this, about how it's kind of changing. Because back in the day, it was very much, we had really strong technique, but not a lot of athleticism, unless you're like a freak like Hickson Gracie or somebody like that. But now it's kind of reaching that merger where we're looking at it more as an athletic endeavor.
Yep.
It's like, oh, I'm an athlete. I work out and it makes my jiu-jitsu better.
Yeah.
Now, you shouldn't rely purely on athleticism or strength or even flexibility. Like those are all great natural and physical attributes that you can pour on after you've got a nice solid foundation of actual techniques.
For sure.
But you get that athleticism and you put that in, oh man.
Yeah, if you have the technique,
You're a
then
monster.
you're just building up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're really dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's impressive to watch him.
Oh man.
And you had mentioned his coach.
John Danaher?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I can only listen to him like 5 minutes at a time.
Dude, I listened to him for like an hour talk about, it wasn't even showing a triangle. It was just talking about triangles. I'm like, I've been sitting here for an hour.
On BJJ Fanatics. It's
I
like a
can't
20-hour course.
I can't believe I've been listening to this for an hour. But I love how intelligent he is about the sport.
Well, wasn't he a professor somewhere and like left to just
Philosophy
dedicate his
professor.
life to jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
He just wears compression
literally a
shirts around
professor.
everywhere. And
Such a weird, quirky dude. But man, I love weird, quirky people. I collect interesting people.
yeah.
And I love them. And people that are genuine like that, or just, and not even in just jiu-jitsu, I just love who they are.
Yep.
Like they're so authentic to me. And
Yeah.
I'll hang out with people like that anytime.
Relationships, people.
Relationships.
Yep. I don't want to hang out with a bunch of normal people.
Dude,
What a boring life.
And it drives people nuts sometimes. My wife, when I talk to random people and like, why are you asking them these questions?
Yeah.
So I hopped in. I was coming back from Dallas, and I hopped in my Uber at like, seriously, it was like 1:00 in the morning to get to the airport. And this Uber driver picks me up, and he's not an older gentleman, but probably like 60. And I just start striking up a conversation with him, like, man, this is when you normally work? He's like, well, this is my side hustle and everything. I'm like, well, it kind of begs the question, well, what do you do?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I'm a nuclear physicist. Like, what? Like, bull crap. He's like, no. Like, he starts talking, and like, very obviously, he is a nuclear physicist.
Interesting.
He's a professor. He teaches it. He's even done projects out here at the site before.
Okay.
So we had this whole conversation, this moment, this dude who's highly intelligent, like way smarter than me. And this connection we had with Idaho and talking about it. And like, we never would have had that moment, this short little ride to the airport.
Yeah.
If I'd have been like, it's just an Uber driver.
Yep. It's so
Take
cool.
my crap. Let's go to the airport. Like,
Yep.
never would have happened.
I agree.
You got to approach people like that. This could be a really interesting human. You don't know.
For sure. We just went on we'd never been on a cruise, so we went on a cruise. And
Nice.
I'd ask everyone where they're from, and if they were from Canada, I'd ask them if they like Justin Trudeau. And it was just great. Half of them did, and half of them didn't. But it opens up so much conversation. And
All you
it's
need
just,
is a jumping off point.
Yep.
That's it. And like, people will talk.
Yeah.
And there's just so many stories out there. And we kind of try to think of ourselves as like, oh, we're this, kind of island to ourselves. But a lot of people have more similarities than they have differences.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have some really cool stories.
Yeah. And I think people, despite what the news will tell us, people are generally good.
They are.
And even if they're crazy one-sided on the political spectrum, they still want the best for the world.
For real. And again, you can get misconstrued on the news and things like that. And this was something that I didn't know. Like, I didn't know about myself till post-cancer. Like, pre-cancer, leading up to that, I did not appreciate how jaded I had become. Because I always considered myself a pretty positive person. Yeah. But especially in law enforcement and those emergency responder careers, you get very jaded to the human condition, like to emotions in general.
Oh, absolutely.
But I got very hypersensitized to them during treatment.
Okay.
And so I'm like, oh, I've been shutting these off for a long time.
Yeah.
And so it was very much an eye opener to be like reintroduced to the human race, basically. And seeing how good they are.
Yeah.
There's some dirtbags.
For sure.
Don't get me wrong. There are dirtbags.
Yeah.
I have sat across the table with evil people.
Yeah.
Like I know they exist.
Yeah.
But like you said, most of them are good people.
Yeah.
Now, do good people have bad days? Yes. And I feel like in law enforcement,
For sure.
even the people that we have to deal with most of the time, a lot of the people that we have to arrest, a lot of them are not bad people. I want to be very clear with people on that. It's like a lot of them are not bad people.
Yep.
They're just bad. They had a bad day, made a bad choice.
And bad circumstances, and we don't know their backstory,
Right.
and there's so much.
There's so much going on there. And what most people don't want to admit is that they're one bad day from that same situation.
I really believe that we are a dichotomy. I actually think that all of us have good and evil inside of us. It's just what we're...
Which wolf do you feed,
Yeah.
man? Which wolf are you going to contribute your energies to?
Yeah, which is why jiu-jitsu is so good.
Yes.
Because you can feed it, you can learn, you can become dangerous, and you can keep yourself from using it.
Right.
That's
right.
You know what? Jordan Peterson's been popular. You know, be the dangerous guy.
You should.
And be able to control it.
Right. Well, and initially, like we talked about, like initially for me, it was like I got into martial arts because I wanted to protect myself. I wanted to be I wanted to be a stronger person, but you become better at not using it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, there's got to be and I'm so sorry we have
you're good.
2 minutes here.
Oh,
I should have cleared the SD card.
You're good.
But it's good, like the confidence levels.
Yes.
You know, once your confidence goes up,
you got nothing to prove.
Your chances of even getting assaulted or whatever goes down because they see you and they're like, I'm not touching that guy.
No.
I've never been in the military, but I get asked all the time, like, did you serve in the military? And it's I was a paramedic for 10 years, you know, I was a firefighter for 10 years, but it's just how I carry myself.
Right.
It's really interesting.
And that's what I want for people. I want them to walk through life not as trying to be Billy Bad A. I want them to walk through life feeling safe, feeling confident that they can take care of themselves.
Yep.
No different than learning first aid or how to swim.
Yep.
Like whatever comes up, I'll be all right.
So you have 1 minute. Where can people find you?
Oh, man. You can find us at 1137 Summers Drive in Rexburg, Idaho. And we do jiu-jitsu classes 5 days a week. We also do self-defense classes. I like to coach the random MMA fighter here and there too.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of cool things, and we do a lot of cool things in the community. You can reach us at www.pacjujitsu.com. We have Instagram and Facebook as well. So you can catch us there.
Okay. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time. I've wanted to
anytime.
get together and chat for quite a while, and then I was flaky on you last week, and so I apologize for that.
No, thank you for having me. It's great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We'll get this published and up and out, and hopefully, boost you guys a little bit. And I just selfishly wanted to talk to you. So.
Well, I liked it. I appreciate it.
Well, I really appreciate it. We'll chat soon. Thanks.